Hey guys, what's up? It's Lexi. Today I have another episode of my new series where I'm going to talk about a famous movie that is said to be cursed. So this one is a doozy. It is going to be a tough one to talk about. This actually used to be one of my favorite movies of all time, but while doing all the research for it, honestly, it makes me never want to watch this movie ever again. But before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. We love everything paranormal, everything horror. I'm going to leave a playlist up here if you're interested. Today's movie is going to be the 1968 Rosemary's Baby.
What have you done to him, you maniac?
Hail Adrian! Hail Adrian! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
Rosemary's Baby is a 1968 American psychological horror film. It was written and directed by Roman Polanski, and it was originally based on Ira Levin's novel with the same name. The movie tells a story about young Rosemary and her struggling actor husband. They move to Manhattan, and she starts to suspect that her elderly neighbors are members of the satanic cult, and they're trying to groom her to use her baby for a satanic ritual. She becomes really paranoid. She feels like she's being isolated. She can't talk to anyone. She doesn't trust anyone. She finally starts trusting her doctor. She realizes that he's actually in on the entire thing as well. I used to love this movie. This is a movie that I've watched several times before and I never got sick of. So just for the movie, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 feathers. So Mia Farrow plays Rosemary. John Cassavetes plays Guy, the husband. The main antagonists of the movie, the villains, are the Cassavetes. Sidney Blackmer plays Roman Castavet. He's like the cult leader. Ruth Gordon, she plays Minnie Castavet. She's the cult leader's wife. She's the one that keeps giving Rosemary these pregnancy shakes and all this weird food that eventually makes her pass out. Mia Farrow was already pretty famous and known for being married to Frank Sinatra. So she gets the script for the movie, she shows Frank, he straight up tells her, I can't see you in this. So he wasn't super happy, but she ultimately took the role as long as she was able to play in his movie as well, the detective. So she's doing both these movies, she's flying back and forth, and eventually it got to be too much for her. They kept having to hold up production, and it caused a lot of delays in production. So Frank, her husband, ends up asking her, it's either Rosemary's Baby or your husband. She decides to finish Rosemary's Baby. Instead of him trying to work it out with his wife, he decides to send his lawyer on set while she's filming and has her sign divorce papers. She's crying. She's so upset. Obviously, she didn't think that he was gonna do all this over a movie. She signs them and she has to continue to film that same day. So that's one of the rough things that kind of put a damper on set. Speaking of the set, the producer decides they want to film their movie in front of one of the most famous buildings in New York called the Dakota. And if you didn't know, the Dakota is the same building that John Lennon was shot and killed in front of. One of the producers, Robert Evans, claimed that the entire time that he was on set at that building, he felt a distinctly eerie feeling. So let's talk about Mr. Roman Polanski. I've read on a lot of articles that he was the one that was hit with the curse the worst. You guys can give me your opinions after. Let me know what you think. Rosemary's Baby was actually his breakout role. Obviously brought him a lot of success, a lot of fame, a lot of fortune. And at the time, he was married to famous actress Sharon Tate. He originally wanted her to play the lead, but the producer Robert Evans fought hard, saying that he wants Mia Farrow to play the lead. And he eventually won. But Sharon Tate does have a small role in the movie in the party scene. So only 1 year after the movie was released, on August 8th, 1969, tragedy struck. At this point, Sharon Tate was 8.5 months pregnant. She was at her home on Cielo Drive, and she was home with 4 other guests. Roman Polanski was actually filming in Europe at the time. The other people at the scene was Jay Sebring, who was a celebrity hairstylist, Abigail Folger, who is a coffee heiress, her boyfriend, and Stephen Parent, which was an 18-year-old visitor. So beforehand, Charles Manson had been looking for Terry Melcher, who previously rented the home. So Charles Manson had his cult go to Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski's home, and tragically her unborn child, and the 4 guests in the home. So this took the world by storm. Not only was a famous actress and her unborn child with 4 other people in the Hollywood Hills, but people were shaken by the fact that it was committed by a cult, and the media kind of described it as a ritual. And things only got worse when the details of them came out and what exactly took place. So without going into like super graphic detail, one of the members does describe that Manson told him to go to the house and, quote, destroy everyone in it and do it as gruesome as you can, end quote. He also instructed the woman to leave a sign, something witchy. When they first broke into the house, Abigail Folger's boyfriend actually saw the intruder and asked him who he was and what he's doing there. And he replied, "I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work." The victims were either or both. With Sharon, they did tie her up and they for 16 times. And before leaving, they used her blood to write pig on the front door and then wrote helter skelter on the walls. So it's a really, really sad and tragic story. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about, I didn't know before doing this research. A lot of people were bringing up that this horrible tragedy that the mainstream media was calling a ritual had a lot of similarities to the plot of Rosemary's Baby. So Rosemary's husband, a struggling actor, sold his soul to the devil for fame and fortune, sacrificing his beautiful wife and their unborn child. And again, this was Polanski's like breakout role. So people were causing an uproar and a lot of conspiracies were coming out about this. One of the main things that people were like questioning was, why would he leave his pregnant wife, who's literally about to give birth, home by herself? And it was actually said that he was supposed to be coming home that night, and there's a text from him saying, "Sorry, hun, can't make it." People also said, like, this is a huge Hollywood Hills home. Why was there no bodyguard? Why was there no guard that night? Another story that I kept seeing being brought up is that either Roman Polanski was cursed by Anton LaVey, or that they worked together to come up with the and they used Manson's cult to implement it.
Anton LaVey was an American author, musician, and a Satanist. He was a founder of the Church of Satan and the religion of Satanism. I actually don't believe that a lot of modern day Satanists are as evil as the media portrays them to be. They're nonviolent, they talk about consent in their book, they ran campaigns to protect the LGBTQ plus community, and they believe in abortion rights and focus on secular humanism and hedonism. But other than that, I couldn't find anything connecting LaVey and Polanski.
So they say this because Susan Atkins, who was Sexy Sadie, she was a part of the cult and had modeled for Anton LaVey before she met Charles Manson. She had also come out in a so-called Church of Satan video, dancing naked alongside of Anton LaVey. So they think that they kind of like all work together. I also read that Anton LaVey served as the technical consultant on the film, but he also wore the hairy like demon suit in the grape scene. That was actually a big fat lie. Like, that is not true. The actor Clay Tanner was the one that wore that suit, and he played the demon in that movie. At this point of the video, I am going to give another trigger warning. I'm going to discuss the allegations that were brought against Roman Polanski. So after the tragic of his wife and his unborn child, he fell into a deep depression, which caused a lot of addiction and crime. So while he was working on the French edition of Vogue, he came across a 13-year-old girl, a minor, a child. He coaxed her into doing a series of photo shoots for him. One of these shoots actually took place at Jack Nicholson's house. Roman gave the minor alcohol and a few other hardcore before he SA'd her multiple times. The thing that really upsets me is that the child's mother actually gave him permission for these private photo shoots. You're there to protect your child. and you're letting a grown-ass man take pictures of your 13-year-old child? So disgusting. I really don't understand it. She did take him to court. Thank goodness. He was arrested. He pled not guilty to all the charges, and then he later accepted a plea bargain which dismissed 5 serious charges in exchange for a guilty plea. While he was awaiting trial, he was actually given a stay to complete a project. He was able to fly out to Europe to finish a movie he was working on. And while in Europe, he was photographed at Oktoberfest with his arms around multiple young girls with a bunch of alcohol around him. There are also photographs of him drunk and partying with a bunch of really young girls in Munich as well. So he was ordered to do the 90 days. Out of the 90, he ended up doing 42 days. And when he was released, he was still on probation. He still had to stay in the States to finish that time. But instead of staying, he fled. Like the coward that he is, he flew to Europe. He said that he wouldn't visit certain cities he wasn't able to be extradited from. And he's bold for this one. This one really gets me. He actually did an interview while in England. He was on the run while talking about this. And he actually says, I like girls of that age. And because the girls of that age, for some reason, like me.
That sounds like pedophilia.
He says a lot more. It's very disgusting, very vulgar. He's so, proud to have gone with this young girl. And he actually has still not even paid this girl the money that he owes, which is around $600,000. This young girl that was SA'd by him, who was robbed of her innocence by him.
Something else I thought I should share. I noticed that a lot of his movies had undertones. For example, he directed the film Tess. It talks about an 11-year-old girl whose poor family decided to sell her off to a man to work for him. She's eventually raped by this man. She falls pregnant. She was a minor, a child. Who thinks of this plot and says, that'd be a great movie? That'd be a great subject to talk about. The film's composer died 1 month after completing his work on the movie by falling off of a cliff in LA. He went into a coma and languished for some time before passing away. Producer William Castle, who found Ira Levin's novel and wanted to make it into a film, was said to be the man responsible for said curse. He received so much hate from the church, saying that he's the reason why Satanism was in the mainstream media. He would receive 50 letters a day at the height of the mania, one of them reading, "Bastard, believer of witchcraft, worshipper at the shrine of Satanism, you will slowly rot during a long and painful illness which you have brought onto yourself." This is scary already until he did unfortunately end up with a terrible kidney stone that needed surgery to be removed. And while in the middle of surgery, he began to hallucinate scenes from the movie and at one point even shouted, "Rosemary, for God's sakes, drop the knife." He said after he got home, he was very frightened of the movie altogether.
So this episode, I feel like I wanted to do it. I got all the information for it, so I was like, I'm still going to put it out. But I'm sorry that it was so dark and that it was so not what I thought it was going to be. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I should have some more coming out soon. I hope that you learned something new from it. And until then, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.